The executive branch has resolved the political liability of the nation's failing electrical grid by deleting 6,000 web pages that suggested setting the thermostat to 78 degrees. It is Sunday, July 5th, 2026, and the evidence suggests we are ready to proceed with the daily shear. I am Lambert Woollingham, here to document a $25,000 electric truck, a Republican midterm convention in Dallas, and the financial incentive to wager real money on a burning town. We begin with the municipal ledgers of Central Texas, where the budgets are empty and the infrastructure is theoretical. City officials in Kyle are dismantling the municipal Uber Kyle program to cover a projected $14 million deficit. The administration is reducing public subsidies that allowed residents to book discounted rideshare trips instead of using a functional bus system. Budget managers realize that outsourcing local transit to private gig economy drivers is an immediate drain on reserves, prioritizing fiscal solvency over the perk. Residents relying on the subsidized network will now pay market rates for the privilege of remaining within city limits. The initiative was designed to bypass the costs of launching a fixed route bus service, proving again that skipping infrastructure only delays the bill. The Republican National Committee will hold its first midterm convention in Dallas this September, breaking from the traditional 4-year cycle. Organizers scheduled the gathering just weeks before early voting to centralize messaging and fundraising for congressional races. The convention brings thousands of delegates, donors, and operatives into the Dallas metropolitan area to coordinate strategy for maintaining control of the House and Senate, proving the established network of conservative political infrastructure in Texas is perfectly suited to turn a routine election into a fully televised spectacle. Security preparations are already underway to handle the influx of federal lawmakers. The University of Texas at San Antonio is relocating its College of Artificial Intelligence, Cyber, and Computing to the San Pedro II building downtown. The move transfers approximately 3,400 students and their faculty from the main campus to the urban core. Administrators require placing 8,000 total students downtown to integrate technical programs directly alongside regional corporate entities and defense contractors. Dedicating downtown real estate to federal technology contracts ensures the university produces specialized workers exactly where the defense industry does not have to commute to find them, which administrators expect will stimulate direct recruitment pipelines into the cybersecurity sector. Federal immigration authorities are pressing San Antonio leadership for additional detention space, citing an inability to keep pace with regional arrests. A senior official with United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement notified the mayor's office that the agency requires a larger holding capacity to execute current deportation directives. Plans to open a newly designated holding center on the east side have faced administrative delays in the zoning required for warehouse conversions. The lack of local bed space creates a bottleneck, forcing federal transport teams to route detainees through distant facilities. With the East Side project stalled in administrative reviews, the agency currently lacks the physical capacity to execute its regional enforcement targets. The satirical publication The Onion has launched a direct parody of the InfoWars conspiracy platform, moving ahead with the editorial rollout while the formal acquisition remains stalled in bankruptcy court. The spoof site debuted nearly 2 months after Alex Jones saw his broadcast network shut down to liquidate corporate assets, achieving in a few weeks what the judicial system failed to manage for a decade. The new ownership group initiated the launch to capture the defunct brand's domain traffic, bypassing unresolved legal procedures governing the broadcast equipment. Executives plan to donate $100,000 in initial merchandise sales to the families of the Sandy Hook victims. The Comedy Network is operating the digital storefront to actively mock the former host's brand of dietary supplements. Moving to the economy, where financial instruments exist to punish anyone who expects a rational market. A Detroit-based electric vehicle startup named Slate Auto has entered the domestic market with a battery-powered pickup truck priced at $24,950. The venture challenges legacy automakers who have abandoned the budget electric segment in favor of six-figure luxury models. The launch provides a low-cost option for domestic consumers priced out of the electric transition by bloated utility vehicles. The startup is attempting to match the manufacturing efficiency of Chinese automakers currently selling electric vehicles globally for as little as $10,000. Slate Auto will now test whether an American venture can manufacture a stripped-down work vehicle without collapsing under regional labor costs and the crushing weight of its own ambition. As Wolf Richter details, the yield on 6-month United States Treasury bills has climbed to 4%, signaling bond markets are actively pricing in an incoming sequence of Federal Reserve interest rate hikes. The upward movement follows resilient inflation data, prompting commercial banks to immediately adjust their brokered certificates of deposit to match the 4% threshold. It is deeply reassuring to see the yield curve finally enforcing the concept that borrowing money should actually cost something, even if it inflates the financing rates for every auto loan in the country. The yield increase removes lingering speculation about a prolonged rate pause and prepares investors for tighter liquidity as short-term debt instruments offer competitive guaranteed returns. The OPEC Plus oil cartel has approved a coordinated increase in global crude production, choosing to pump additional barrels even as international energy prices trend downward. Deliberately dropping the price of your product to bankrupt geopolitical rivals is the sort of leverage only available to an entity that controls the contents of the Earth's crust, and member states are actively using it to pressure external competitors in North America. The supply expansion follows diplomatic negotiations between the United States and Iran that eased military pressure on the Persian Gulf. As commercial tankers resume regular transit through the Strait of Hormuz, market speculators are unwinding the risk premiums that previously inflated the spot market. Germany's specialized mid-size manufacturing sector is cutting domestic jobs and relocating production facilities overseas to survive fierce price competition from Chinese firms. The family-owned engineering companies that anchor the German export economy are facing an influx of heavily subsidized Asian industrial equipment that matches their technical specifications at a fraction of the cost. The pricing pressure has severely eroded the profit margins that sustained high-wage European factory positions, forcing manufacturers to shift assembly lines to cheaper labor jurisdictions. As the mid-size engineering firms leave, Germany loses the localized employment that anchors its industrial heartland. Legacy producers across the continent are struggling to compete against state-backed dominance in advanced industrial machinery. Financial prediction platforms have launched specialized betting markets that allow users to wager real money on whether specific towns will be destroyed by active wildfires. The derivative contracts treat advancing fire lines like financial assets, offering payouts to speculators who correctly predict the total acreage burned or the loss of municipal infrastructure. Platforms use satellite tracking and automated weather feeds to adjust the odds of a town's survival in real time. Operators defend the contracts as an objective tool for pricing environmental risk and providing rapid disaster insurance to people losing their homes. Emergency management officials argue the wages create financial incentives for arson, which is a surprisingly rational market response to an unregulated gambling pool on community destruction. We arrive at the global and national headlines, where state failure is managed through careful web administration and voluntary compliance. The bipartisan Ratepayer Protection Act has advanced through a House subcommittee with its enforcement mechanisms entirely stripped, leaving residential customers to absorb the surging electricity costs of the artificial intelligence boom. The legislation was drafted to shield taxpayers from data center power line upgrades, but it now relies exclusively on voluntary compliance from the technology industry. Microsoft and other technology conglomerates lobbied heavily to ensure the final bill avoided hard caps on industrial utility consumption. Making the legislative measures optional successfully protects the profit margins of commercial server operators by ensuring you pay for the privilege of their computational load. Regional power authorities remain free to approve subsidized energy rates for tech facilities while passing the long-term infrastructure costs directly to local residents. Physical protests regarding the Israel and Gaza conflict have forced multiple Democratic congressional candidates to abandon public appearances during the primary season. In San Francisco, State Senator Scott Wiener was surrounded and shouted down by activists at a local park during an annual Pride March, compelling his immediate exit under escort. Activists also targeted New York Congressman Dan Goldman, organizing blockades to physically disrupt his schedule. Campaign managers argue that the physical blockades overshadow the activists' core policy demands and generate sympathetic media coverage for the targeted politicians. Candidates are increasingly restricting their schedules to private fundraising events and secured venues, meaning the most effective way to reach a politician is once again the traditional method of writing a very large check behind a closed door. In an update to the disaster in northern Venezuela, the official death toll from the back-to-back earthquakes has climbed past 2,900, with thousands of residents still unaccounted for beneath the rubble. International rescue teams and military personnel have transitioned operations from search and rescue to heavy debris removal as the survival window for trapped individuals expires. The collapse of concrete public housing blocks in La Guaira has overwhelmed responders, and a severe lack of heavy excavation machinery restricts the pace of recovery. Surviving residents are currently crowded into makeshift encampments without reliable access to potable water or stable medical care. Foreign aid flights continue to land, but shattered roadways ensure the supplies remain neatly palletized at the airport while local neighborhoods dig through concrete by hand. The United States Department of Energy has scrubbed approximately 6,000 web pages related to energy conservation from its official domain, just as a historic heatwave stresses electrical grids across the country. The deleted archives contain decades of technical advice on reducing power consumption during extreme weather emergencies. By pulling the information offline entirely, the executive branch abandoned utility demand management, preferring rolling blackouts over the political liability of suggesting a practical thermostat setting. The deletion of the federal efficiency guidelines followed a political dispute involving New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, when national conservative figures attacked his request to set air conditioners to 78 degrees as a dangerous imposition of government control over household appliances. Chinese authorities have released Ezra Jin Mingri, the pastor of an underground Christian church, ending his months-long detention in a state prison. The release occurred less than 2 months after United States President Donald Trump requested the religious leader's freedom during a diplomatic summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The pastor was originally arrested during an aggressive state crackdown on unregistered religious organizations and has since boarded a flight to the United States. The intervention resolves a high-profile detention directly between heads of state. The Chinese government continues to incarcerate thousands of dissidents under strict domestic security mandates, but they are willing to export a single religious figure to keep diplomatic photo opportunities running on schedule. The financial prediction markets have created a perfectly efficient system for the modern era. When the wildfire crests the ridge, you no longer have to wait for an evacuation order from the county emergency manager. You can simply log into the trading platform and watch the odds adjust in real time. The satellite feed sends the weather data to the algorithm, and the algorithm tells you exactly what the market thinks of your living room's chances. If the payout on your zip code drops below 30 cents on the dollar, you grab the dog and get in the car. It is disaster management stripped of municipal bureaucracy, replaced by the pure, frictionless clarity of watching strangers wager real money on whether your roof will catch fire. You can even hedge your own displacement. You put $500 on the destruction of your own town, and when the electrical grid melts down because the Department of Energy deleted the web page telling people to turn down their air conditioners, you win enough capital to cover the first month's rent in whatever city the fire goes to next. The ledgers have been updated and the risk has been priced. We will let you know when it is time to evacuate. I am Lambert Woollingham, and I am going to see what the spot market thinks of my fleece before I walk outside. The day has been shorn until tomorrow.